Okay, I want to explain to you guys something. When we're doing these warm-ups, they're not just to do. And they're not something that we're trying to learn because you already know it. The reason why I keep the warm-up simple to learn and simple to play is because we're focusing on very specific techniques that I want you guys to focus on improving on. So let me try to use an analogy here. Who plays sports on any level?
What?
Sports on any level. All right, so what sport do you play?
I used to play soccer.
Okay, what do you play?
Softball and lacrosse.
Okay, and you?
Baseball.
Okay, so since you guys all have a since you guys all have a history in sports, let me try to explain something. To be successful at sports, let's use practice as an example. When you guys go to your practice every day, I'm sure your coaches tell you guys things like be aggressive, attack the ball, be assertive. Thank you. I'll get these to you in a moment. So let's say soccer. I actually played a lot of soccer growing up. Now, a big part of playing soccer is when the ball comes your way, you can't just like mope around and get to it. Try not to tap right now. I just want to be really clear so I don't have to repeat anything. You have to seek that ball out and attack that ball. And were you an offensive player or a defensive player?
Both, but
Okay.
yeah.
So let's say you're an offensive player. You're on the opponent's side of the field. You're in a position where you could potentially score. That's your job in that position. So you have to be assertive. You have to attack that ball, and you have to attack it in such a way that nobody can get in your way between you and the goal. You're getting the ball in the net. Like that, your objective is to score. If you're a defender, ball's coming your way or an offensive person's coming your way with the ball, you have to attack that ball and get it out of their possession and then kick it upfield so that the guys on the offensive on your team can do what we just talked about, right? You have to be very assertive. Do you guys know what assertive means?
Yeah.
That's like your goal is to do the thing that you're trying to do. You're not just like kind of being lazy to get to it, okay? So you said you played softball and lacrosse, right? So a lot of those same things are true there. So let's say you're batting. Ball comes your way, are you going to be like, no, you're gonna keep that on the ball, and you're gonna like smack the crud out of that ball when it comes to you, and you're gonna be very accurate, and your goal is to get it home run, hopefully, but at the very least, as far away as possible from the defensive side of the team, so you can run around the bases and get as far as you can get. You have to be very assertive to do that, very aggressive. You have to act like you really want it. Okay. I don't know the game of lacrosse as much, but I know it's a very aggressive game. Like you can't just stand around. Like you're running around, and it's kind of physical, right? So
For the boys, it is.
Okay. There might be whatever the differences is. I'm sure you're bumping into people, and you're like going for the ball, and it's not always pleasant. Like you could like run up to a person, like let's say they're a bigger person than you. You run up to that person because you want the ball, but you realize they're bigger than you, and you're kind of like, oh crud! Like I don't want to get hurt by this person, right? So, but you still have to do your job if you want to win the game, right? All right, and then what was it you were telling me?
Baseball.
Baseball. Okay, so like it carries on there. So,
Catcher.
so what your coaches are trying to do every time you guys practice is they're trying to teach you skills and to improve on skills so that you can be better at the game. You have to be assertive. You have to be aggressive, and there's a lot of repetition there. When you go to practice, you kind of know what to expect most of the time, right? And you're doing a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And every time you're doing that same stuff over and over again, your coaches are giving you like little critiques or comments that help you continually to improve it, right? Okay. Here's one more analogy I want to use, and I'm going to bring it back home to my point. I don't advocate violence, but who has a sibling here, like a brother or a sister? Okay, everybody does. I do too. Now, have you ever been so upset with your sibling that you just want to like punch them or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
That you want
So
to or that you did.
we're not going to go there, but I just want to make a point. That moment, listen, that moment where you're so upset, you feel aggressive, you feel assertive, like you feel like you need to handle business and settle that argument or dispute or whatever it is. I'm not advocating that violence, and I'm not saying it's a good thing at all, okay? I'm just talking about that emotion. That emotion of, I don't like this, I'm going to make it work for me, like whatever the situation is. That's a very assertive, aggressive emotion. Now, let's say you were going to punch somebody. If you go to punch somebody, like you're going to put everything emotionally into that punch, right? You're not just going to be like, take that. No, you're not going to do that. You're gonna lay everything that's in your spirit into that punch. So let me be clear, I'm not advocating it. We're talking about the emotion, okay?
Yeah.
That emotion is a similar emotion to being aggressive on the ball, an aggressive sports player, and this carries on to other things. One more example. Let's take video games, for instance. I guess all you guys probably play video games on some level. No, yes, no?
No. I know it.
Not so much, but you do?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. Have you ever played a particular game and you got frustrated because like maybe it's a skill that you have to develop to get to like maybe you're jumping.
And then you rage quit, and then 5 minutes later you get back on the game.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
So you're going through the game and you get to this point that's really frustrating and you're not succeeding at first. But you become persistent because you really want to succeed. You really want to get to like the other side of the gap or get the flag or whatever the thing is in the game. So you're going to be aggressive and assertive and persistent. Hold on. And persistent. We'll save those comments for later. Just bear with me. You're going to be aggressive and persistent and assertive to accomplish your goal, right? Okay, so now let's bring it back to the warm-ups that we're playing. The warm-ups that I've given you guys, I've decided over many, many years that these, for me and for my students, are the most effective warm-ups. Here's my goal with these warm-ups. Once you learn them, after learning them, we want to continually get better at them.
Yeah.
Now, to get better at them, this is what I want you to think about when you play them. I want you to think about playing every note aggressively, every note assertively. And I'm not talking about playing loud all the time. I'm talking about being very intentional about your goal. Think about things like sound quality, rhythmic accuracy, developing your muscles and being consistent with them. So you can hit a drum a bunch of different ways. You can use your wrist, you can use your arm, a combination of the two. You can let the stick sort of do the work for you. Now, those are like specific techniques that we'll talk about at some point, but here's what I'm looking for right now, is when you're playing 8 on a hand, be very intentional about every note. When you're playing double beat, be very intentional about making those two notes. Every time you play those doubles, make them very consistent, accurate, make them sound good every single time. That should be your goal. And then when you're doing it with one hand and then doing it with the other hand, try to get both hands to sound the same.
Yeah.
Become accurate. Become consistent. When you're playing quarter accents, you have loud notes and soft notes. You want those loud notes to always be the same. Make sure they're loud. You want the soft notes to always be the same. Make sure they're soft. And you want to make sure the loud notes and the soft notes are very different. That's called contrast. If you're playing loud notes and then like sort of not loud notes, then it's hard to tell the difference there. That's the difference between me being articulate with when I talk to you versus if I'm slurring my words like this. Okay? If I'm slurring my words, it's hard to understand what I'm trying to tell you. If I'm being very articulate with the things that I say, it's going to make it easier for you to understand what I'm trying to communicate to you. So when you're a musician, it's sort of the same thing. You want to be very articulate, very clear about what notes you're playing, what rhythms you're playing, the dynamics that you're playing at, because you want to communicate the music really well to the listener. I want you to think about that when you're playing things like 8 on a hand, quarter accents. When you're playing rolls, now you're using a combination of single strokes and then double strokes in a particular pattern that I want you to be very specific about. Be very specific and intentional about every single note you play. Be very specific and intentional about your doubles or the rolls. And when you're doing those doubles or the rolls, you want to make sure those two notes are as strong as you can play them. I'm not talking about loud. I'm just talking about being very strong with it. So, that said, it's easy when we're playing the same thing over and over again to be like, I know this, I'm kind of bored, this is not very exciting, blah, 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 blah. I get that, I totally get that, and I think you're right. But I want to change your thinking a little bit. I want you guys to think, wait a minute, I know this really well, I know what it is, maybe I should focus on playing every note the way that I'm suggesting, like listen to Tobin's advice. I'm like your coach. I'm trying to make you guys better because I guarantee you the skills that we're developing with these exercises carry on to everything that you will ever play. It'll make those things better. So if you're playing like simple exercises here and you're like, I know it. Well, when you see it in actual music with your band director or any director that you work with, you're going to know how to do it really, really well. And they're going to be really, really impressed with you because you took the time to care about every specific note. Just like your coach will be like, wow, that kid's doing great at whatever sport it is because they're actually listening to my advice, they're improving on those skills, and this is like a star player on my team. I want you guys to be the star players on your team, like in your band or drumline when you do that, or anything that you choose to do with music. Because you guys are worth that. You are valuable. I want you guys to really care about being the best that you can be. You will still make mistakes. I have no expectation that you be perfect. My only expectation is that you guys always try to improve. So even if we're playing something that seems easy and simple and you feel like you know it, dig a little bit deeper and try to find those things that you can improve on. Let's talk about accuracy just for a moment, or rather consistency. If I'm playing, let's say I'm just clapping my hands, for instance. All that I just did there was consistent. But if I do this, three things are happening there. I'm not always producing the same sound quality. I'm not always producing the same volume. And I'm not always producing an accurate time. Like I was kind of speeding up and slowing down a little bit. So when you guys are playing all these exercises, focus on what it sounds like. Focus on the volume or the dynamics. Focus on the rhythmic accuracy or time. All that said, let's try that right now. So let's go back to this warm-up, and I want you guys to focus on those things. And here's the other thing I'll put out to you, is the better that it is, the less we'll play it. That's the way that I operate. And that's the way most band directors operate too. If it sounds good, we move on.
Yeah.
If it seems like there's things to work on and improve on, then we'll go back and revisit it a bunch of times. So understand that my goal isn't just to make you guys do the same thing all the time. My goal is for you guys to always get better.
Yeah.
Okay?
My coach, if